Hi everyone! Welcome to this special video. I'll be guiding you through my desert zoo, built upon the release of the Arid Animal Pack. Once again, I'm using AI voice because, honestly, I don't like listening to my own voice. My English pronunciation is not great, so I find this option more convenient. It might sound a bit unnatural at first, but I hope you'll get used to it. I built this entire zoo in franchise mode because I enjoy the gameplay. It requires paying attention to the needs of the animals, guests, and managing the economy and cash flow, all while aiming to build a nice-looking zoo, which is my main goal. So welcome to Calarey Zoo. Can't believe it's been over half a year since the first episode of this series. Wondering how I came up with this entrance? Well, I simply Googled it. I typed zoo entrance design or something like that, scrolled and scrolled until I found one that caught my eye. The inspiration for this building comes from the Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago. Now, let's head inside. There's an information kiosk and a small gift shop area. I've used various items throughout the entire zoo from the Steam Workshop. The link is in the description below. So, of course, I want to give credit to these awesome creators. Let's keep going, but before we head to the first habitat, I'll take you through the backstage area. This is the only part of the zoo, aside from the foliage and surroundings of the enclosures and zoo, that I didn't record. There's a workshop that's purely decorative, and next to it, I've built a small garden. A larger version of this garden is featured in my second series, Emerald Bay Sanctuary. You can check that out later if you're interested and haven't seen it. Moving on, there are some trucks and props to make this area feel more bustling. Then, there's a big building with staff facilities like the in-game workshop, trading center, research facility, vet surgery, and quarantine. From the outside, you can see that the quarantine looks tall and spacious, but inside it's just an empty space. In real life, a facility like this would be much bigger, with holding pens and such, but I'm not aiming for super realism, just something semi-realistic. Let's keep going. I'm using this staff path to reach the first enclosure I built, which houses the Addax. The inspiration for this hard shelter and backstage area came from a real-life habitat at the Calgary Zoo in Canada, which I visited last year. My friend and I spent 2 weeks there, and of course we had to check out the local zoo. The building I replicated was originally a shelter for camels, but I loved it so much that I had to recreate it first. It was a lot of work, but I think it was worth it. In my eyes, it's my favorite build in this zoo. Let's take a look inside. Knowing I wanted a large herd of Addax, I created numerous stalls that can be separated and closed. Towards the back, there's a small staff room, a keeper hut, and some backstage props, hay and straw. I even added a bench for our tired staff. Let's continue this way, passing these small food and drink trucks to our second habitat, home to the Somali Wild Ass. I didn't have a specific vision for this one. I just started building, and surprisingly, I ended up creating that distinctive hard shelter and backstage area. To my delight, when I uploaded it to the workshop, it made it to the top 10 blueprints for a few days. I couldn't be more proud. Let's take a look. It's somewhat similar to the Addax's shelter, but with a more modern and detailed touch. I spend a lot of time watching YouTubers and speed builds, and drawing inspiration from them is what I enjoy the most. Now let's head this way to the Bat Cave. That was, I think, the most time-consuming build in this zoo, but I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. We have 2 walkthrough exhibits with the Egyptian fruit bat. Looking at it now, I could have tried to cover the metal frames of the enrichment items more to make the exhibit less obvious. However, the waterfall is beautiful, thanks to Jurassic, who provided the blueprint with cave walls, pillars, and such. Here is another backstage area with a storage room and refrigerators. Continuing this way, we reach the Dromedary camels and Dama Gazelle's habitat. The main feature here is this little fountain. I saw a picture of a habitat with a similar fountain, and I thought it would be awesome to build in Planet Zoo. Before we head to the other side of this bridge, let's check out these exhibits and the food court. Need to use the washrooms? I do. Let's have a small break. Let's continue. I'll guide you through a somewhat larger backstage area. The first one we visited at the beginning is quite far away. So to avoid vets running with a sick animal across the entire zoo, I placed a vet surgery here as well. So, here we have another enclosure that took me a lot of time. It's the one from that speed build episode where I tried the AI-generated voice. At first, I felt good about it, then a bit weird, thinking, how can anyone listen to this? Well, now I've decided to go for this approach again, and I think it's much better than written text or my own voiceover. Anyway, back to the habitat. For those of you who haven't seen or heard that episode, initially I intended this concrete pool to be filled with water. However, these rhinos can't swim, as I found out after I built it. So I came up with the idea that originally, this habitat was designed for elephants, which are no longer kept here at the zoo. The employees are gradually adapting and renovating the enclosure for a more modern look. This pool hasn't been fixed yet, so the rhinos have some enrichment items here. On the other side, there's a newly repaired ditch, or moat, or whatever it's exactly called. You often see such barriers in zoos for large animals. Briefly, we can also peek into the rhino's hard shelter, which also looks quite aged. Our architects have adapted only the barriers and gates for now, and the rest will be fixed later. Back here, some materials for the repair are already prepared. Now we'll head to the Bactrian camels, which are a base game animal, but they fit into the desert theme, so I thought, why not add them? I had one idea, and it worked well with these animals: a glass bridge for visitors. How did I achieve that, you ask? It's only possible with a path mode. You can find the link in the video description again. Without it, I wouldn't recommend exploring this zoo on your own, as you would miss out on that effect. Now, let's go back and continue to the next habitat, meerkats. And to make it more than just a plain spot, there's a restaurant nearby. Meerkats have both indoor and outdoor enclosures, along with a small private area. Once again, we'll go back a bit because this is a dead end, and we'll head to see another desert animal. This time, it's one of my favorite animals, the Fennec Fox. They have an indoor space for resting and an outdoor enclosure. Fennecs are shy animals, so I installed one-way glass, and I didn't allow visitors to enter the indoor area to avoid disturbing them. We're slowly approaching the end, but there are still a few more animals to see. Here's the exhibit for the African crested porcupine. I really love this enclosure because there's something interesting everywhere you look. Behind the glass, they have a feeding station with melons, and right next to it, there are hot water taps and water jets. By the way, this live shot from the burrow is not actually live. When you connect the camera with the screen, all the foliage starts to flicker, and it's quite unpleasant. I think the developers haven't fixed it yet, so I recorded a few seconds of footage from the burrow and played it here to make it look like a live shot. There's another enrichment, the forage box, along with shelters made from logs. Unfortunately, due to the animals' hitboxes, they can't access these shelters, so they serve as decorations. When we turn around, we can walk through a small oasis where 3 exhibits are located. The last desert animals I wanted to add to the zoo were featured in the last bonus episode I built last week. The last but not least animal in this tour is the sand cat. This enclosure is also one of my favorites. Let's first take a look at the indoor section. Here we have an educational station for kids, more signs, and a view into the indoor part. I designed the enclosure so that the staff can only be in this section and they don't have access to the outside. If there's no enrichment or a bowl that needs replenishing, it's not a problem at all, even in franchise mode. The keepers always manage to tidy up the enclosure. Now, let's peek into the small backstage area, where I have 2 staff facilities along with lots of decorations and a fridge, and so on. As we exit here, you can see that we're back at the entrance. Regarding this enclosure, I just want to add that in reality, the staff would have access to the outdoor section for the sand cats here. However, since you can't add more than 1 gate to the enclosure, I did it purely for decoration. Originally, in this outdoor part, I had a sandy path from the mod. But because I had a regular path right behind the barrier, visitors were trying to get onto the sandy path into the enclosure. However, Since the sand cat is an animal that visitors can't enter the enclosure, they would always start screaming and fleeing when trying to access that sandy path. So, I deleted it, and this problem was gone. However, there was one more issue. I had to add these one-way glass panels because the cats were constantly stressed by the crowd. So that would be the end of the video. Let me know how you liked it, or even if there's something you didn't like or think could be done differently. I would truly appreciate any feedback, likes, and comments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want to see more awesome zoos that I am going to build. Thank you so much to everyone for your amazing support. I really appreciate it. Have a great time and see you in the next video. Goodbye.